A very good morning, students. Students, as you know, we are doing the dramatic monologue Porphyria'S Lover, and today we will continue with the textual analysis of this dramatic monologue. In our last class, we studied that how a lover tells the story how he murdered his own mistress. The murder was committed during the night when his beloved Porphyria came to meet him. Students, we discussed how it was raining and a storm was blowing. The storm was doing a lot of damage to the topmost branches of the elm trees. It was also agitating the waters of the lake. The lover was inside his cottage listening to the tumult of nature. Just then, Porphyria arrived, entering the cottage softly and noiselessly. Immediately after entering the cottage, she closed the door and lighted a fire in the chimney, making the cottage warm both with the fire and her own presence. Porphyria called out her lover's name, but getting no reply, caught his arm and twisted it and twined it around her waist. She told him how much she loved him, but she also said that in spite of all her resolutions, she had not been able to give up her husband and home in order to give herself over to her lover completely forever. So, students, let us come to our today's part that we are going to analyze today. But sure, I looked up at her eyes, happily and proud. At last I knew. Porphyria worshipped me. Surprise made my heart swell, and still it grew, while I debated what to do. That moment she was mine, fair, perfectly pure and good. I found a thing to do, and all her hair, in one yellow string I wound. 3 times her little throat around, and strangled her. No pain felt she. I am quite sure she felt no pain. As a shut bud that holds a bee, I verily oped her lids again, laughed the blue eyes without a strain, and I untightened next the tress about her neck. The cheek once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss. I propped her head up as before, only this time my shoulder bore her head, which droops upon it still, the smiling, rosy little head, so glad it has its utmost will, that all it scorned at once is fled, and I, its love, am gained instead. Porphyria'S love? She guessed not how her darling one wish would be heard, and thus we sit together now, and all night long we have not stirred, and yet God has not said a word. So the lover says that Porphyria told him that how much she loved him. But sure, I looked up at her eyes, happy and proud, at last knew Porphyria worshipped me. Surprise made my heart swell, and still it grew while I debated what to do. A feast was going on in her house. Even then she came to meet her lover. Her confession somewhat surprised him, but it also made his heart swell, and he began to wonder what he ought to do. This was the moment when she belonged to him completely, in all her beauty, goodness, and purity. That moment she was mine, fair, perfectly pure and good. I found a thing to do, and all her hair, in one long yellow string, I wound. 3 times her little throat around, and strangled her. No pain felt she. I am quite sure she felt no pain. As A shut bud that holds a bee, I verily oped her lids again, laughed the blue eyes without a strain, and I untightened next the tresses about her neck. Her cheek once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss. So Porphyria'S lover says that the beloved, that so sitting with pride and vanity of social status and superiority aside, the girl had put aside everything. She had come to him, struggling all along alone her way against the fury of the fast howling wind. Now the lover said that he was convinced, after a long period of disappointment and no response, that she was sincerely devoted to him and held me in the heart of her heart above all things. This pleasant sudden surprise made his heart glow big with pride, and it contained within him as to what he should do next in order to celebrate this success. So, the next line, students, contain the description of Porphyria'S face after she was dead. So the lover says, "3 times her little throat around and strangled her, no pain felt she. I am quite sure she felt no pain. As a shut bud that holds a bee, I verily oped her lids again, laughed the blue eyes without a strain." The description is pathetic, pictorial. Porphyria'S lover further says she felt no pain when she was strangled. Of this I am quite sure. He says, "Then I opened her eyes very cautiously, as one would the petals of a delicately closed bud which holds a bee imprisoned inside, and to my surprise, her beautiful blue eyes still seemed to laugh and did not exhibit any sign of pain." Now, after committing a crime, though quite unknowingly, for he is not in his real senses, the lunatic lover is justifying his action. I propped her head up before, only this time my shoulder bore her head, and which droops upon it still. The smiling rosy little head, so glad it has its utmost will, that all its scorned and at once fled, and I, its love, am gained instead. Porphyria'S lover thinks that the expression on the face of Porphyria is one of complete satisfaction. No shadow of pain and sorrow is traceable. This is the third attempt to convince himself that Porphyria did not feel any pain on being strangled, that he was justified in killing her. The lover says, "Her beautiful little head lying on my shoulder, with its laughing eyes and cheeks made rosy because of the burning kiss, she is so glad at having gained its highest desire, thinking all that it hated has passed away, and I, whom she loved and worshipped, have become hers forever. The loss of what it hated and the gain of what it loved makes her head so glad and so beautiful. Her darling one wish would be heard, and thus we sit together now, and all night long we have not stirred, and yet God has not said a word." So in these last lines, the final section, the Porphyria'S lover is making his comments on the incidents. He thinks that Porphyria'S darling wish has been fulfilled now. They have met that day after such a long time, and thereafter he thinks they will never part. In the concluding lines of the poem, the lover says, "Porphyria'S love is gained, but before she attained the pinnacle of her ambition in this strangest of manner, she little knew how it would be granted. We have both been sitting throughout the night, waiting for his judgment upon the dead, but still we have not heard a word from him." So here, this startling poem by Browning comes to an end. Students, we see that language is transparent, and it is the meaning of the poet, his intention in writing of the monologue, that has baffled some critics. According to some critic, the lover who strangles his beloved is insane, but the way he narrates the tale does not bear testimony to this fact. The poem is a good psychological study of a soul for the simplicity and naturalness of narration, economy and intensity of style and lyric charm. So, students, we have seen that it is divided into 5 units. Each verse is octosyllabic with iambic rhythm. The rhyming scheme is AB, ABB. Students, here the textual analysis of this beautiful dramatic monologue comes to an end. Thank you very much.